Welcome. All right. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started. So today is March 8th, International Women's Day, and we have a record number of RSVPs today, and we're also on live stream for the She-Suite Leadership Perspectives panel. I'm Cindy Kreider. I'm an associate professor of marketing here at Olin Business School, and I'm thrilled to be here moderating a discussion with this incredible group of influential and inspiring business people. We're so happy that all of you are here today. International Women's Day is not simply about celebrating the achievements of a few highly accomplished individuals. It's powered by collective contributions, big and small, that come from many people. I admire a quote from Gloria Steinem, who once said that the story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor to any one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights. Today we'll be talking with 6 women who have forged great success in the business world. We'll hear their stories, their lessons, and find out how they set goals and reach them. Not only do these women have busy and successful full-time careers, but they also have in common that they are all graduates of the Olin Business School Executive MBA program, and we're very glad that they could join us again today. The theme for International Women's Day is Press for Progress, and progress is definitely a word that comes to mind when you hear about the careers of these panelists today. Their full bios are in your folders. However, I'm going to kick off the morning by asking each of our panelists to spend a minute introducing themselves. And so we'll start with Rebecca Boyer.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Boyer, CFO of Kelly Mitchell Group. When I started the program, I was early on in my career as CFO of Kelly Mitchell, and then we were a regional firm. And now we are a nationwide firm with 16 offices and 2,500 employees with a national recruiting center.
Good morning, I'm Andrea Faccio. I'm with Nestlé Purina. I've been lucky to be 22 years with the company. When I started the program, I think I'm the one that graduated the last. So I just graduated in December. When I started the program here in WashU, I was the VP of Marketing for the Latin American division of Purina.
I'm Linda Haberstroh, and Phoenix Textile is a distributor of both linen, uniforms, and interiors products to the healthcare industry. So our customers are both acute and non-acute care nationwide.
Good morning, I'm Mary Hager. I'm Senior Vice President and CIO at Ameren Corporation. Interesting story about my joining the program. I joined the program, finished Go Week, and then the next week got back to work and was informed that I was being promoted to CIO at the time. So I had the opportunity to really use the program to think about the role and to really think more strategically about the role. So I wouldn't have chosen it to be that way, obviously starting a new role and being in the program at the same time, but it was really really a blessing for me to be in the program at the time that I was getting my feet on the ground in this new role.
Good morning, I'm Deb Slegel. I'm with MilliporeSigma. It's a life science company of Merck KGaA out of Darmstadt, Germany. Currently, I wear 2 hats. I am the head of our biologics technology manufacturing cluster, which I have global facilities around the world that we're fortunate to get critical products to our customers to solve tough problems in life science. The second hat I wear is in the St. Louis. We have a large presence. We have 2,000 folks and 8 facilities. So I get to serve as our hub leader. So I'm the glue that keeps us together and reaching out to the external community. Thinking back of going through the IMBA program and being part of WashU, when I started or was considering going into the program, I was at a mid-level manager position. And the program was part of that transformational journey for me. And coming out in the middle of that program and moving into a senior leadership role. So it was just a phenomenal experience.
Hi, good morning. I'm very excited to be with you all today. I'm Joyce Tremio. I'm the Chief Operations and Diversity Officer for CNA Insurance Company headquartered in Chicago. We're a property and casualty insurance company, and I'm a proud grad of the IMBA 45 program. Excellent, thank you. When I started the program, I'm a 20-plus year insurance professional, and I tell people I started when I was like really young. But during the program, I actually made a job transition, leaving an organization after having grown up there for 20 years. I took time off. I took a year off, and I've now been back in the workforce for about a year. So very excited to share experiences, real life stories, and connect today.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah. That's great. All right, so I have some questions that I'm going to ask everyone here, but we'll also be taking questions from the audience if you have questions along the way. I think Karen and Meg are out there with microphones, and they'll find you if you put your hand up. So I'll ask some questions. I think our panelists will jump in and answer them, and then as you have questions as well, raise your hand, and you'll get to ask some as well. All right, so the first question that we have is, you all work in different size organizations within varying industries. What strategies are your companies using to maintain or promote gender parity?
I'll start with that. We're a woman-owned firm, so it's kind of a natural thing for us. We really respect having the diversity, and we have 70% of our leadership is women, and 53% of our workforce is diverse. So many opportunities that we will have to encourage our team to step up, and even, for an example, we had one of our recruiters here in St. Louis stepped up and moved to Minneapolis to lead our Minneapolis operation, then moved on to Chicago to lead our National Recruitment Center, and now is our VP of Strategic Accounts worldwide. So we kind of really encourage that within, and also in every hiring decision and everything we're looking at, we're always looking at how we can have different lenses and different perspectives to make us a better team.
I can follow with that one. So I work for a large corporation, Nestle. For us, gender balance is a super important initiative. You can see I have several women here in the audience that works for us as well, and I think my career shows that I work in 4 different countries. We see diversity as being key of our business. So we want to be as diverse internally as we are externally. So our consumers are very diverse, not only in gender, but also in ethnicities and culturally. So I'm not, by the accent you can see, I'm not from the US, I'm Brazilian. I work in 4 different countries. And the company helps us to do that. So, for example, 45% of all the directors and above in Purina are women, and this is a great achievement for us. And we keep tracking them, and there's a lot of programs internally that help these amazing women, that is a lot of them here today, to progress in their careers. So one of, for example, that we have in the Purina franchise is called the Women Leaders Forum, and this starts in the sales force, and we have 208 associates that participates on that one, and now we're extending to the full company, including factory. So now what we want to progress more is in the factory side, because on the factory side, you can imagine, is a little bit more male-dominated. We have 20% of women in the leadership roles, and we want this to be more.
You know, I'm definitely more on Rebecca's side. My mom founded our company in 1983. And our industry is very, very male-dominated. Our company is such an anomaly in our industry. You know, with my mom as the founder, our fiduciary board is majority women. My fellow shareholders of our privately held family business are my sisters. And our executive leadership team is 50-50. And you know, our always joke over the years was we were looking for a few good men so we could have gender parity and join our team. I think, but what has really been, you know, I think though about where my mom started, and when she was trying to get the mills, who were at that time had their agents in New York, so the mills, there was still a domestic textile industry at that time in the early 80s. And when she was trying to get the mills to open her, she would go down to New York every week and try to get open. And, you know, no, every week she'd go back. And every time they'd tell her no, she would always say to herself, don't cry till you get in the elevator. Don't cry till you get in the elevator. You know? And then, you know, and finally after the first one, you know, first company opened us, then we were able to get that crack and find our place in the marketplace. But I guess on the encouraging side, it's how many women-led firms I see working with us in our supply chain. We buy mostly in Pakistan and India in our flat goods, and there are women-led firms and mills there really growing. It's exciting to see women stepping up globally to me in our supply chain, and really, you know, it's the energy in this room. It's really about all the women leaders in this room. Mary and I were talking before the break. I think that's why there's been such a great response to today. It's great to be able to hear other stories and to get to hear y'all's stories.
So I'll address Ameren, and I've been at Ameren my entire career. And Ameren, as you know, is an electric and gas utility in the states of Missouri and Illinois. And just by its nature, there's a lot of male. We're a heavily engineering company, and you know that not as many women go into engineering just in terms of a pool of resources there. And we also have a lot of craft, skilled craft that work in our power plants and work on our lines and pipes. So we do have a lot of male coworkers in the organization. But from the get-go, my experience at Ameren personally has been very welcoming and encouraging to me as a woman in the workforce. As a matter of fact, when I became a programmer, I programmed for about 2 years, and then was asked to move into leadership, into management as a supervisor. And I don't believe it was because they looked at me and said, she's a woman, we need a woman supervisor. I think they looked at me and said that I would be a good supervisor and that was what they were looking for. So my experience has been very encouraging and welcoming. More currently, I will say, though, that Ameren has a very robust diversity program, a diversity and inclusion program that we have been investing in for more than a decade now, led by a fellow WashU alum, Sharon Harvey Davis. And Sharon has done a wonderful job of really incorporating diversity and inclusion across our organization. And it's been top-down sponsored from our CEO through all levels of leadership. And we do really have invested in our company and in having tough conversations and have developed, I think, a program that has been recognized. We have employee resource groups, and we have mentoring and all sorts of programs that really encourage a diverse and inclusive workforce across the business. And so those are the things that Ameren is doing and continues to do in order to encourage women and other diverse leaders and mentors across our business.
So for Millipore Sigma, being a company that's a German-based, Merck brings its own interesting challenges of having a diverse workforce. But secondly, similar to Ameren with engineers, being in the science industry and scientists is a challenge within itself, is seeing that diversity in terms of gender. But for Merck, there's a lot of programs that are going on, whether it's women in leadership programs or different formats for folks to network and continue to develop their skills. If I were to pick just one thing of all the things that we're doing that I think is transformational, it's seeing the senior leadership at the top, starting with our CEO, Stefan Oishman, making it a top priority for him is making sure that we are focused on women talent and women talent in leadership, which is very, very important. Seeing that focus then translate into our talent and development program. When we go through biannual talent reviews and succession planning and making sure that as leaders at all levels of the organization, folks are called out. Who are your top women talent? What are you doing? What opportunities are you giving them? And it doesn't stop there. It's when we do that talent review in 6 months. It's like, okay, let's look at the folks she talked about last six months ago. What have they done? What opportunities have you given them to continue to grow and develop in those 6 months? So I think that focus effort, maybe it's very pragmatic or very just practical, but it's a continual relentless effort to make sure that we are giving women the right opportunities so that they can be visible and grow in advancing the organization. It will take time, but I'm confident with focus we can get there.
No, and absolutely, I agree with everything that my fellow panelists have shared. So because I'm spending a good portion of my time, I have 2 jobs now. So in terms of leading operations, but then also leading diversity and inclusion at CNA. It was a newly created function that I actually put the business case together in terms of this is what we need to do as an organization. Presented to the chairman and CEO, and then I was brought on to actually lead the efforts. And what Deb mentioned is really spot on by way of the tone from the top has to be set. Because you don't want, there could be good intended people who believe that there needs to be more work done. But if your leader at the top does not set the expectation, the cadence for that, we're actually gonna devote resources by way of money, as well as by way of holding people accountable for results. And so, I'm a big proponent of employee resource groups because that's really how I got my start in the diversity and inclusion space. But in addition to that, there needs to be that level of how is it going to show up in the leadership ranks? What are we doing to develop talent differently, not just from a gender standpoint, but every dimension of diversity, whether you're talking about physical abilities, mental abilities, in terms of some physical challenges, where you're talking about the LGBTQ community. It's a very broad topic. And one of the things that I believe that organizations, there's so much data out there that will substantiate that companies that are very intentional about diversity and inclusion will outperform companies that take a more passive approach. And so one of the things that I think it's important that as leaders, we position this in terms of what's in it for them. So by starting with inclusion, letting them know that this is good for your business, this is good for employee engagement, even if you don't believe in the societal thing by way of it's just the right thing to do, numbers and data don't lie. And so I find that it's much more effective to lead in with the data, to get that buy-in in terms of this is important to you because it's going to help your bottom line. It's going to help with retention. It's going to help with attracting new talent into your organization. And when you build that business case for it, people are much more likely and more prone to get on the bus and it be more of a sustainable, and I don't want to say initiative, but it's more of a culture shift for your organization versus it just being like a flavor of the month and something that kind of comes and goes.
Very interesting. And I think these points are really interesting. I think this issue of having kind of results and data to show people about the importance of these diversity issues is important and intriguing. And as an academic researcher, I think part of the onus is on us to give you more of that data about exactly how and why it's important to be able to make those cases. So it's great to hear. Okay. All right. So I have a different type of question for you next. We're going to talk about all of your many wonderful achievements, but before we get to those achievements, we know that it's not all immediate success, so what are some of the challenges that you faced? More specifically, is there any particular setback that sticks out to you as something that you've had to overcome in your careers, and what were the lessons that you might have learned from that hardship?
You know, I'll start that one. So I had a lot to choose from because I've had a lot of different things happen. But, you know, I won't go to the obvious in terms of things, you know, that can happen at work in terms of a misstep and making a decision and then you having to rebound from that. I'll go to a more personal one in terms of making the decision for myself to attend graduate school. The former company that I was with was not supportive. Meg, Edie, they were all a part of the conversation. For whatever reason, you know, there just was not in certain leaders' mind, why does she need to go? You know, she doesn't, and someone said to me, a very senior leader, you don't need to get an MBA to be successful here. And I'm like, okay, pause. I'm just trying to be successful in life. So this really doesn't have much to do with you. And so when it's the reality, right? There's certain decisions that you have to make for yourself that will upset people. They won't agree with it. They may not understand it, and that's okay. But for me, it was a tough challenge because I was a rule follower. I was the person that was collaborative, always wanted to make sure what's in the best interest of the team. Sometimes I put myself on the back burner. But this was so important to me that I was willing to shake the apple cart and was willing to go, self-sponsored myself, use my vacation days for it, would do it again in a heartbeat. But then I also had to realize that my brand, perhaps, it took a hit because I was no longer that person that was the rule follower. I was the person that, she doesn't listen. And that was told to me, you don't listen, you don't take feedback. But I said, that's okay, and we'll see how this shakes out. And so what I ended up doing was I had to work extra hard to ensure that the 20 months that I was living and working in Kansas City at the time, driving to St. Louis every month for the MBA program, I had to make sure that I was crossing my T's, dotting my I's, that there was no missteps. And I will say it wasn't all me. I had a very supportive team. They were fully aware that I was in school. They knew the days I was in school, and they supported me in terms of filling in the gaps. And I'm pleased to say that in the time that I was in school, I had my best performance year at that company. So in terms of I was able to do both, I became a better leader as a result of me going. So there's something in it for you as well. But then in terms of managing the personal relationships, it took time. And subsequently, I ended up, moving on from that organization because it was time for me to do something different. But I was cognizant of the fact that I had bruised some relationships and I needed to repair those. And I did find ways to connect with people. I was very much active in terms of communicating results, what's happening within my business area, how I'm developing my team. So you couldn't say that it was a result of something's falling through the cracks because of graduate school. But I did take a hit from a brand standpoint. My thought process, that's a short-term setback. And sometimes you take those short-term setbacks for long-term success, and I was willing to do that.
Yeah. So similar. It's fascinating to hear your story, and we absolutely have a connecting point. So for me, I wouldn't know if it was necessarily, I would call it a setback, but certainly an inflection point. And in my career of saying, okay, I'm at a mid-level manager position, love it, it's great. But if I want to grow and do more and make it to that senior leadership level, what's it going to take? And so for me, that I can recall exactly where I was at, where I was sitting at that point in time when it struck me is how do you move that? And similar to you, I had senior leaderships who I respected tremendously, and all of them told me, you don't need to go get an MBA. You'll be just fine. You don't need to do that. But for me, it was understanding and networking and getting both the formal and informal what's needed to be considered. And even on that list of conversations was a point for me in getting through that. And it wasn't a quick journey, but it took some time. And then reflecting on, do I want to do that? Am I up for that? And then once making that decision, is going for it and saying, you know what, it's going to be critical for me to go back to Washington University and go for that executive MBA program. It was absolutely a tipping point. And we were talking earlier about that program, and it brings so much to you in terms of, taking you to another level in strategy, in the networking and strategic thinking and leadership, but it's the confidence. So it also brings an element that it was a pleasant surprise. It's like, wow, it gave me a level of confidence that I can have a seat at the table, and my voice can and should be heard. So that was a tipping point and inflection, and it took quite a network around me that I reached out to help me make that bridge. And some of the people weren't so obvious on who were those folks that were to help you make that jump.
It was, I'll jump in on this one too, because it was all tied up with my experience here, the tremendous experience I had down here in EMBA 34. When I told you my mom founded our business, and so we had a long plan. We started the company in 1983, and I joined in 85. So I'd literally worked my way up through the whole business. And when we did transition and I stepped into the role of president in 2009, I really felt like I was kind of an inch wide and a mile deep. And so I wanted to go back and do my MBA. And, but I was just tremendously daunted here at 50, at the idea of coming back to school. And, and I was also wondering, is really WashU the right place for a small business? I thought of it, this is where people come from, Emerson and Bunge North American, but it turned out to be absolutely a tremendous, incredible resource. But I always told you that I was 50 when I came here, and I always did my well woman check on my birthday month. And so I was here, and when I went to make my appointment, I said, well, what day did I come last year? And they said, oh, you missed last year. And I never miss. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's just been so crazy. I mean, the transition at work, coming to school back here, somehow I missed. And so when I went for my well woman check that year, I found out that I had breast cancer. It's just an incredible. In fact, I laugh now with friends because as I found this out when I was here in school, and you know how hard it is to get on your phone after breaks. So we ran out of class and I got on my phone, and so immediately when they scheduled my surgery, I had a message from the doctor, and he said, okay, great, Linda, I've got surgery scheduled for you. It's going to be next week on Thursday the 8th. And I had my phone out and I go, oh shoot, we've got all of our sales professionals coming in for reviews that day. I can't do Thursday or Friday, but I'm completely open to Wednesday and Thursday or the entire next week. And there's like silence on this end of the phone. He goes, that's not how this works. We're going to get your cancer out. You're not making a hair appointment. And so, it was just, so I had a lumpectomy. It turned out to be stage 3, and I had a lumpectomy followed by chemo, followed by radiation. But the one thing I wanted to say, leadership lesson that I took away from this, now in retrospect, is that it's very difficult when you're in a small business. When you have personal setbacks, whether it's a personal illness or whether it's a devastating family illness, it creates anxiety and uncertainty for your whole team, for your suppliers. It really does. And so how you address that and message that was something that I had to learn while I was dealing with it myself. It's been a valuable lesson since then, because I realized I only knew so far ahead. So I wanted to be very transparent and open, but I couldn't be over reassuring. you know, because I didn't know how things were going to go with the next stage of my treatment. I was so blessed because of the resources of Siteman. And so our company is, I live in St. Charles and our company is located in O'Fallon, Missouri. So I had Siteman St. Peter's right there in between. So I was literally able to I could work on Thursday morning, get my chemo Thursday afternoon, be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and go back to work on Monday because of those community resources, our community hospitals. That was just incredible. But it was really important to me, too, to be part of a clinical trial, because it was because of the drugs that other women had trialed that I was able to be so well during treatment, you know, that I was able to work. But I tell you, it's still devastating, you know, and so I tried to message that, be appropriately encouraging, know what I could say, but mostly it's just your presence, you know, and so I had a really cute wig. And in fact, most people, when I put my wig on for the first time after all my hair was gone, if my eyebrows hadn't been gone, I would have looked 1,000% better because my wig was so great. And most people just said, I love your new haircut. What have you done? You know, but being able to use the health that you have. And I learned that from so many other people that are dealing with chronic conditions. Use the health that you have. You know, don't regret the health that you don't have at that moment, but just use the health you have and move on and message that appropriately. And that I don't want to go on and on, but I just have to say my EMBA 34 team was so fabulous. They were just so fabulous, and my team at work at Phoenix. They just stood right alongside me. They expected me to still do my role, but they stood right along beside me and really strengthened me. And when I came back from surgery and I walked in our first class after that, my whole cohort was wearing pink shirts. And this is the most wonderful part to me. I feel so blessed to say that at Phoenix, we reached our target that year, both the year I was in treatment and I graduated with my class on time in December of 2010. And have been well 7 years now. And so.
I was planning to say something, but it's very hard to go after that. No, I will be brief. I think there is one thing that a lot of you guys here will face the same. Being a woman, you'll be labeled as being too nice sometimes, and I am an introvert, and a lot of times in my career I heard introverts will not be leaders. You're too nice. Some people would encourage you, some people not. And I mentor a lot of women that has the same profile that I have, and I must say, even in the EMBA program, all Lee Konzak assessments that I have done, they tell me, no, you don't have the profile for a leadership role. Don't believe on it. If you really want something, it's true. You need to overcome some of your fears. You need to overcome some of the things that if you want that, you need to go for it. And I remember one of my managers saying, no, you're not the material for being a leadership. You're not the material for being a VP. And I went back home and was really devastated. And I was like, I want that, and I would do that. And I went and found great mentors and role models for me, and I did the EMBA program was one to me to learn that, yes, probably my profile is not the best one, and I would struggle sometimes, but you can do that. And I think this is what I say to all the introverts that I'm mentoring over years. You don't need to be an extrovert to do that, and don't let anybody say to you that you cannot achieve and to be a leader. Everybody can be a leader.
Well, like many of you, I have many setbacks, but one of those goes back really, really early into my career, and I had a family and was starting out in public accounting, and it really was, not differentiating yourself and not being able to, if your son's sick, you can't stay home. You need to forge ahead, and it really wasn't I took a lot of flack on, like, you're picking your career over your family, and I really in no way felt like I was doing that, but ultimately it was a family decision, and my husband couldn't be more, more supportive, and throughout your career, I realized how important that is, but when I was, I really felt like it was it wasn't the quantity of time I had, it was the quality of time. So I was able to forge ahead, not stand out from I'm not able to do that or go on that long, be on that long project or put in those hours because I had a family. Now it's come so far along, so super excited for the growth in that. But early on there, going through that and actually had an opportunity to go back as a controller of a place that I worked during college. So at 24, I was their controller. Awesome, right? So I went on to that to do that in the company, made some great progress there, led a huge move to a tax, to get some real big tax abatements, and was super pumped about that. But really early on, I realized that with the family dynamics and the financial aspects of that company, I wasn't going to be able to really help them achieve what they needed to achieve, and it really wasn't a long-term goal for me. So I hired my replacement, went on to the next company as a senior accountant, took a step back, but knew that going on to a bigger company that I really thought there was a lot of opportunity to grow, that was the right choice. There was a lot of angst on whether that, from everyone, I don't really think you're making the right choice, but, a lot of following your gut. To many of you guys had said, I went on to do that. While I might have been the senior accountant for a short period, they were going through, they went through of trying to acquire a couple companies, help with the due diligence on that, and then ultimately ended up doing an asset sale and picked me to help build, start 4 other companies, close down a 75-year-old company. It was really, and that was, at the age of 26. So it was, they used to joke that I would say, I'm 30. I would never tell someone how old I was because you didn't want really anyone to understand that. But it was also, that wasn't a home building. It was a male-dominated world. And you know what? I really was able to make that to my advantage because of that. If I could be smart, articulate in the room, everyone remembered me. So if we needed to get something done, they would call knowing that they could depend on me. So it was really taking that early, setback, but really knowing that each one builds upon each other.
Yeah. Amazing stories. There's a lot of grit here, easy to see. Okay, so next I want to turn to achievements. More directly, I think you all have done kind of an incredible job of turning some of these setbacks into achievements, but I'll ask more directly about achievements. And then after that, I'll open it up more formally to questions from the audience. So if you have a question, get ready. All right, so regarding achievements, what is a big or perhaps even the biggest achievement in your career, something you are very proud of? And how did you get there? And, for example, were there any particular approaches that you relied on or any particular advice that you relied on while pursuing this achievement?
So I'll start that. I think about my career and I think I was not one who had a goal from the get-go and said, this is where I'm going to end, and I had a grand plan, to be quite frank. I started work and I found positions that I loved, and I gave it my all in terms of learning the business and learning the position. And as opportunities came my way, I believe I was prepared. I looked for education and opportunities to prepare myself for the next step. And I was willing to take the risk of moving into an area that I wasn't absolutely familiar with. And that's what we all have to do, right, to get that experience and to move forward. So I think as I look at my career, I certainly didn't have the plan and that I would be here at the end of my career. But it's been an amazing company that I joined with amazing values that line up with mine, which I think is absolutely critical as we think about our careers and really being all in on being a part of those organizations. I think about people that have influenced me. It could be just casual comments from a colleague that you think, man, that's something I should consider. And I think so many people have influenced so many of us unbeknownst to them. And certainly I've had mentors, but I think it's just the relationships and the colleagues that we develop over time, being prepared, being willing to take a risk, and then being very self-aware. In terms of influences on my life, I think back of my parents. My mom was an amazing woman at the home. My dad was an amazing man in business. And so I think about when I think about those two parts of my life, right? I've got a home life and I've got a business life, and his influence on me and all of us, there were 4 of us children, is just profound. I still see it today in terms of his work ethic, his focus on education, his really value to to a hard day's work. And so those are the big influencers on me and have carried me through my career.
Yeah, so I can go. So similar to Mary, I had someone ask me in the last 6 months, did you ever think your life would end up the way it is? And you kind of pause and reflect and say, absolutely not. I never set out to be in a particular role. I did set out to say, you know what, I constantly want to learn, I want to grow, I want to be challenged, I want to make a difference, and I hope to have fun along the way. So that's been the journey. I would agree with Mary in the essence. For me, I think one of the big accomplishments or achievements is being willing to step outside your comfort zone, take on those roles, take on those responsibilities that are not near to you. I encourage others to do that, and I said, I promise you, it's going to feel yucky for a little while, right? You're not going to be the expert in the room. You're going to have to learn new tasks and get comfortable with it, and the more you do it, the more the next assignment and the next assignment that are outside your zone and area of expertise becomes. So I feel like that was a key part of being able to navigate to where I am is taking on those different roles and responsibilities. But I would say one of the biggest achievements is that's part of it, but for me it's looking back and seeing those folks you brought along the way, and those individuals that you have coached and mentored, sponsored, and presented, and seeing them move into leadership roles and achieve their aspirations. So today is exciting. This afternoon, I'm really lucky I'll get to leave here, and we're going to make a bunch of big announcements, and there's a lot of folks that I will get to see move into their aspirational roles. So that, to me, is a huge achievement, and that makes it kind of all worthwhile. Yep.
I would say, in my case, I was thinking about it, and there is, of course, a lot of things that we achieve. I've been working 22 years in the same company, and I think similar thoughts. I never thought to be here. I never thought to leave my country and have an international career. Everybody asked me, like, you always wanted, and I was like, never asked. So the main achievement that comes to my mind when I moved the first time overseas, that I went to Switzerland, and thinking back, you always think that your great achievement will happen when you are in your comfort zone. You are the expert, you master what you're doing, and was exactly the opposite. They offered me a job that I didn't think about it. I had clear in my mind, and a marketing person, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And they offered me to do a strategy on nutrition, and I remember the manager that would be my manager in the future, he said, I want you to come here and do a global strategy for nutrition. And I look at him, it's like, I'm not a nutritionist. You don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, this is what I want. I want somebody that is not a nutritionist. I want somebody that has a business mindset. I want somebody that can work with other people. And the greatest learning it was my greatest achievement that I remember, because it was a project that I did in another language that was not mine, that was a global project. And I think back and saying nowadays is that don't think and don't create your path and be open to other things, because why probably was my greatest achievement is that I needed help from other people. And also I put me in a vulnerable way saying, how can I use other people, because I needed somebody else. If I was doing by myself, maybe it would not be the greatest achievement. So was the greatest learning, I think, in my career, that yes, you can do things that you don't think you can. And there's amazing people that can help you in the way. So trust the people that is offering jobs in areas that you don't believe you can do it. Sometimes I hear people saying, I don't think this job is for me. Trust that they know what they are doing. So they see something. Somebody asks you to do something because they see a potential in you, and they see that they can do, and they know what they are doing. And ask for help. I think this was the greatest achievement that I can remember in there.
I had thought about something else for this question, but we just had such a sweet experience at Phoenix this week. I got home last night I got in about 11 from Dallas, and we have been pursuing a group purchasing organization, Vizient, basically for 17 years. And we were awarded the contract, and I was there for... Our team has been, our customers are organized into group purchasing organizations, and so we have been longtime We have been longtime suppliers to Premier and to HPG, HCA. But there was a Group Novation at the time. The oldest group purchasing organization in the country was VHA, and they formed with UHC. That had become Novation. They purchased MedAssets they merged with MedAssets about 2 years ago. So we had been pursuing this GPO, pursuing it, and then we would have 100% access to the acute care market, and never closed the deal, And our VP of sales was so great when we were awarded the contract. Their colors are orange, so we had an orange on everybody's desk when they arrived that morning, and it was just so great. And we were interviewing him in our town hall meeting. We have a town hall meeting every month with our whole team, and he said, "Give me 17 years, I'll get it done." But I can tell you how sweet it was to be in that room yesterday. It was so great. And now just the hard work ahead, to be able to go to work and to be able to gain new customers in that space. And just real briefly, I'll just say by far the personal greatest achievement I feel like I've ever had was to be able to transition to the next generation in our family business. I was very aware of how many businesses fail at that point. My mom is such a dynamic, great salesperson. I would love for all of you to be able to hear her, tell our Phoenix story. And so to be able to step into that role, we did not take it for granted. And I just feel so proud that our Phoenix team, our leadership team, was able to allow her to retire. She retired at 70 from that role. Is still our CEO and active on our board, but from actively taking care of customers. And I'm so proud that our team was able to allow her to transition into that next step, and that we've been able to go forward and grow.
Excellent. All right. Great. So I would like to open it up for anybody who has questions in the audience. There are 1 or 2 microphones in the back that will come to you if you raise your hand. So if you have a question, I see one over there. They'll head your way. Okay, so we can start here. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Pamela Herman. Thank you so much for being here today. I come from 2 different industries that tend to be a little more male-dominated. I worked in aerospace and now in telecommunications. And I want to talk about something I call girl-on-girl hate crime. This idea that maybe sometimes women are a little harder on each other, and this perception even sometimes from male colleagues that we can't get along as well. And I've heard women that I know say, I prefer to work for men, if I'm being really honest, And why do you think that is? Have you experienced it? And what can we as women leaders do to break through that? Because I believe we need to lift as we climb, and yet I still see this as an ongoing issue. So I'd love to hear your feedback.
I'll jump in on that one.
That's a good question.
I can say that I've seen it. I've seen that show up. I've seen it happen. And I've seen it happen from the standpoint of sometimes women can be passive, just by way of passively not advocating for others, passively trying to propel themselves versus the reach back and pull through. So it does happen. It probably also happens with men as well, but it just shows up differently in terms of just the competitive nature. What I believe, you think about employee resource groups, I'll use CNA as an example. We have a Women Impacting Leadership group, where it's really about bringing women, men as allies as well, in terms of how can we become better advocates for one another by way of when positions are available and open, we're actually reaching out to our network and doing it in a thoughtful way in terms of you're not only a woman, but you're qualified as well. So it's not just I'm going to bring you forth because you're a woman, because that does nothing for the person that you're bringing forth or for the business. And so in terms of if your organization has some type of forum where you all can actually get together, have conversations about whether it's job promotion, whether it's development, even the Me Too movement. It's really going to be about we get more done collectively than we do as singular individuals. And so sometimes it's just a function of calling it out respectfully. Because I've done that in terms of if I've seen some behavior that was probably not appropriate at a meeting where a person could have stepped up, I don't do it in that moment in time in the meeting, but I kind of pull them to the side and say, hey, it would have been helpful had you especially if you kind of leave me out there to dry. It would have been helpful had you done X, Y, and Z. And so sometimes it's going to take having those crucial conversations and calling out bad behavior, because if you don't call it out, it's just going to continue to perpetuate itself. So that's what I will offer.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Perlmutter. Thanks for being here today. My question is on development plans. So you all have kind of mentioned that maybe you couldn't have predicted where you would be today, back 20 years, 15 years. But what role did development planning have in your career progress, and what was your approach to managing it?
I'd be happy to start with that one. I'm a huge advocate of development plans, and I forget the statistics. It's like if you don't write something down, if you write something down, you got like a 95, 99% chance of actually achieving it. So even before development plans were the cool thing to do, I can recall early on in my career sitting down and making note of what it was that I wanted to develop or skill set, and whether it was just focusing on one thing. I was very blessed early on in my career to have an individual that reached out to me and proactively coached me on my career and where do you want to go? Do you want to go into management? Do you want to move into leadership? Do you want to move in business? Do you want to be a technical guru? So I was really blessed to have that person ask those crucial questions early in my career to help kind of mold and shape. And from there, thinking through that, also coaching me to say, okay, what skill sets or things do you need to work towards to head down that path? Because early on, similar to Mary, I moved into leadership after a year out of college. And I was just very blessed that someone saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And so for me, it was just that passion of leading others and being responsible. So I encourage folks, the development plan, the magic is 70% doing, right? 20% that networking or coaching or mentoring, and that 10% education. But I encourage everyone, sit down, write it down, just even if you just pick one thing to drive it home. But I've actively have a journal and a development plan for the past 30 years. And without that, I don't think I would have been as laser focused on what I need to do to constantly improve. And it's a journey, but you need to be relentless on making sure that you're developing yourself not only on technical skills, behavioral skills, leadership skills. It's a whole gamut that you need to work on.
I just want to say I so agree with that. And personally at home too, I journal and actually write down my goals for the coming year. But just one thing that I have kind of learned at this stage of my development is just to continue to challenge myself is so tough. Because some of my goals were related to getting to that next milestone. And so now I want to continue to just really challenge myself to be a lifelong learner. And so I have to look at each quarter, what have I stepped out and taken that additional class or gone to that seminar or gone to that meeting to learn something new? Have I done because I so agree with you, I've learned so much more when I had to step into roles where I was very uncomfortable and was not knowledgeable and just had to do all that after the workday was done to even catch up. And so just every quarter making sure that stays part of my development even at this stage. I encourage all the women, all the leaders in our organization to continue to do that, make continuing development.
Yeah, I would add a point like in a large corporation like ours, we have a process that we need to help people to get the development plan. And it's like sometimes as a leader or even as an employee, you go like, oh, I don't want to have that conversation. And it's really important. It's not that you need to know what I say, like don't have your career path saying this is the way I'm going, but you need to know where you want to go. And I think I learned over time the best things that you need and the best mentors that I had was to understand if I want to be in a leadership position, if I want to take a job in another area, what I need to learn to get there. And I think the best thing is ask always for feedback. It's not easy. And always give the honest feedback because sometimes we don't want to give that feedback. And by having the feedback and understanding, what is your blind spots? And when I mentioned at the beginning, some people saying to me, you don't have the leadership material. The way that I went back and said, help me to understand what I don't have. And keep learning. I think I remember when I applied for the EMBA program, I had 20 years of experience. And a lot of people would ask me and say, why? You are a vice president. Why you are doing that program? You don't need that for your job. And I think this is the wrong thinking. If you think that An MBA will give you the next step, and you're doing that to have a stamp and to have a title on your curriculum. This is not the way to do. You're doing that for you. I did that because I wanted to do, and I would be learning, and I would be getting skills that I needed to continue progressing my career. So keep developing, and it's good. I think you need to know the areas and try to raise your hand to do other things that probably you didn't think about it, I think.
I think there's a question over here.
Good morning. My name is Katie Jarbo. Thanks for being here today. This question is more directed at Joyce. When you said you took a year off, my ears kind of perked because sometimes things happen in life and, you know, that comes and you need to happen. How did you position yourself so that you could enter back into the workforce at such a level that you are? And like any other interesting insights you had from that year off?
Yeah, no, best year ever, I will tell you that. So as I mentioned, I was with one firm for close to 20 years, a lot of different leadership roles, had taken a few moves with them. The company was acquired probably in, let's say, January of 2016. At that point in my career, and this still holds true for me today, culture matters to me. So the job is going to be the job whether you work at ABC Company or somewhere else. But if the culture does not align with my core values and I can't see myself there, it's not a fit. And so after the acquisition took place, I actually landed. I had a job. I was good to go. But, you know, with some positions there. But my thing was, I was ready to go. I was finishing up my graduate degree in spring of 16. My eyes had been opened to a world of possibilities as a result of going through the program. My confidence level had improved, and I'm like, I can get a job anywhere. I have a lot of runway. I can do a lot. But I was also smart enough to know that after being at a company for 20 years, I didn't want to leave empty-handed. And so you have to be strategic about, okay, so do I just leave and leave everything behind, or how do you kind of play it out? I'm a person of faith, and so I put my position before God in terms of this is what I need to happen for Joyce. And sure enough, there's redundancy in terms of I was in one role in Kansas City. The acquiring company had a person in a similar role, not the same. And I'm like, this is my chance. And so I actually opted out. So I was able to leave with full benefits, and that afforded me the financial freedom in terms of figuring out what it was I wanted to do next. Now, even without that package, financially, I was in a good place because I always believe that you kind of need to kind of keep something in your purse. No, you do. Just realistically, life happens, and you need to be prepared for life. And so when I made the decision to leave the organization, I was very deliberate with people that I'm taking a year off. I didn't know what I was going to do in that year. I didn't know how it was going to work out. But I was deliberate because I'm not a job hopper, and I didn't want to just jump into another situation. I kind of equate it to like a marriage. If you've been married for 20 years, you likely don't just want to get into another long-standing relationship and get married right again. You probably want to take some time off to process. And I wanted the time off to have a very clear mind, not have responsibilities that would prevent me from being thoughtful about what it was that I wanted to do. But in the meantime, it wasn't as if I was just like, sleeping in all day and not being productive. I got some really great advice from Franz, who is a part of the EMBA program here. He and I probably were talking every couple weeks. He gave me sound advice from the standpoint of you can take the time off, but let people know that you're available in terms of that you're looking. And so that requires a level of humility to a certain extent, because people are going to have questions, they're going to make assumptions, but I was okay with that. I kind of tell people this is what I'm thinking about doing. Would love to know more about what you're doing within your organization. Let's grab coffee. So I did lots of networking, formally and informally. I'm big on volunteerism, so I was able to have more capacity to do that. I traveled a great deal, spent time in South Africa. It was an amazing year. And the fact that I had a clear mind in terms of what is it, what do I want to do? What's my passion? What gets me motivated to do, even if I'm not getting compensated for it? And so that's when I end up landing in the diversity and inclusion space pretty early on. And I became more strategic about how do I connect with people in that space to understand what they do, how do I get plugged in. And so that's kind of how I morphed into creating the business case for the job that I was hired to do about a year ago at CNA. So again, be strategic about it, but be okay with making that decision, because for me, I know had I not taken the time off to process, I would have just jumped into a similar job doing similar type of work, and I would be less fulfilled than I am today.
Hello, good morning. It's great to have you all here. My name is Dina Redinger. I'm an EMBA 50. I also am an executive coach for women. And I would love to hear from all of you As women go through their careers, they find a place of fear. It's almost paralyzing to be able to figure out what are the next steps. How did you identify that fear place to be able to move forward in your career?
You know, I think, I'll start with that. I think that we as women are always, even for that new job, are like, oh, I don't have all that skills. I don't have this, I don't have that. I think it's just having the courage to, as you said, those are some of our biggest accomplishments are when we get out of our comfort zone. So I think it's always every day when we were talking about having development plan. I know for me, every day I have personal goals and professional goals. I look at them every day and am I driving them? Where am I going? And that doesn't mean that trajectory of exactly that I have everything spelled out, but is that helping me learn a new skill set to get to that next job that I'm looking for? Or listening when someone says, hey, check out this opportunity. Maybe this, learning this is a good for your company or good for your next step. Always being open and listening, but having the courage to take risks.
If I would add onto that, I think when you reach those points where you're moving into a completely job that you've never done before, and you say, okay, there's very little of this I'm familiar with that I need to do, and you find yourself there quite often as you take on different roles. And you know, it's interesting, I have to chuckle and laugh at myself and say, you know what, you're not alone. There are a vast number of resources and experiences and great people out there that you can tap into for help. So it's funny, you get into that fear and you kind of want to curl up and then realize, you know what, other people have been there and done this. Let me draw upon those individuals and collectively we'll get through this.
I would have to say too, it really resonated with me when you were sharing, Joyce. I'm definitely a woman of faith, and that is actually your question's one of my flags that is, I know something's of interest to me. If I'm a little afraid, that's kind of a sign, you know, if I've been praying about that and I still feel a little bit of fear when I consider an opportunity, that's kind of a flag that this might be a good opportunity for me to pursue. But if I have a feeling of dread, then that's kind of a flag to me that this probably isn't the right thing for me. So I think getting to know yourself and how you react to challenges and new situations where they're going to be positive or negative outcomes for you is good. So fear is that's something to think about more.
But I'll piggyback on that again. I am a woman of faith as well. And I had someone tell me many, many years ago, if God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely. And I'll just share something really quickly. So I'm actually living that now in terms of, you'll notice that my title on the slide is Chief Diversity Officer. About a month ago, I assumed the Chief Operations Officer for all of CNA. So I have an organization of about 600 people. I don't have a background in operations. And so it was one of those moments where, why wouldn't I take this opportunity? You know, had I been approached 4 or 5 years ago, I would have really assessed and, I'm not ready, I need to do these 4 or 5 things. And even like, I'll be honest, on Sunday, I had like for a nanosecond, like, I should just quit, like this is just too much. But it was just one of those, it was a moment in time. But my thing is, I have great learning agility. I'm not afraid to ask questions. And I am smart enough and capable enough to do the job. And so right now, today, I'm over my skis on it. There are things I don't know, and I'm not used to being the person that I like to know things. But you know what, it's okay. 6 months from now, I'll know more. Tomorrow, I'll know more. I mean, so it comes in increments, and you just have to live through the fear. I am pushing through the fear every day. Every meeting I'm in, I'm pushing through the fear, and it's okay, I'll survive.
Good morning. My name is Karen Leaker, and thank you for sharing all of your stories and experiences with us. My question is around promoting diversity, and several of you are in large organizations, and in fact, where there's really been a dedication of resources around doing that. And when I ask this, it's not only gender diversity, but just diversity in general. The audience is varied from, people working in startups or their own businesses, and so they may be formal leaders or informal leaders. What one piece of advice would you have for this wide range of audience around what you could take away today and act to really promote diversity in the roles that you're in?
I'll start really quickly. So, regardless of where you're at within an organization in terms of job title, individual contributor, leader, whatever, you have a responsibility to advocate for others. And where there is bad behavior or not enough of something, it is your job to say something. And so, and it depends, right? I'm not saying that you're going to go to the CEO and say, we need more women. I'm not saying take that approach. But in terms of asking thoughtful questions in terms of this position is open, have we not considered? Because that will get people to think about, maybe I did just go to my Rolodex of people that look like me if I'm a heterosexual white male versus me having a more broadly holistic viewpoint of opportunities. And so I would say it's our responsibility because it's not enough just to have one or two of us in the room, having a seat at the table, making decisions. We have to reach back and pull through. So you can't expect HR, you can't expect the chief diversity officer to lead the efforts. We can provide the structure and the strategy, but it takes boots on the ground to get the work done.
I'll add on to that. I think it's kind of the other side of that is that we really need to be aware of how we show up every day individually. And as leaders or whatever part of the organization we're in, that we are acting and that our actions are aligned to our words. And so I think it's very important that we be very reflective on our own actions, that we are self-aware of how we show up. And how we talk, and then how we walk. And so, again, it starts every day with how we show up, and are we living the values that we're trying to push to the rest of the organization? Because that's where people get aligned and can really get behind and really know that we're serious about our words. So.
I think there's a question right here.
Hi.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Lisa Hu. I'm a WashU alum, so it's my privilege to stand in front of you ladies. So I have a question. So I was in the corporate world for over a decade. I recently started my own company. And, I've always been, to your point, always go after things that you're very, very uncomfortable with. And so what I found myself doing was saying yes to every single opportunity. So I have a question for you ladies, which is, how do you tactfully say no? And that's kind of the struggle that I'm realizing with my time being spread so thin. I need to say more no's so that I can balance my life out. And in the past, in my corporate world, I was escalating very fast in my career because I was saying yes. But at some point, you have to say no.
I think that I used to be that yes to everything, but I think that what I found, especially in some of the boards or different things that we're on, what can I do that I can be successful, that I have the time to do that? Because I can certainly say yes to everything, but I'm not able to make a difference for that individual or that organization. It's not in anyone's best interest for me to say yes. So I really try to narrow it in on what can I actually achieve to help them? And if I'm too thin, I can't, then I will definitely say no. Or does it not focus in line with what my goals are then? And sometimes it's like, absolutely, I'd love to help you, but at this time, unfortunately, I'm not able to dedicate that time, but I also will connect them to someone that can make a difference. And that connecting is such a powerful tool.
I was going to say that. I think just being very honest with them. Is it aligned with what you're trying to accomplish? Do you have the time to be productive and to really contribute meaningfully to whatever the request is? I think you have to, and people understand that. My experience is if you're honest with people and explain why you're saying no and it's not the right time, but you can connect to others, I think people really honor that and really respect you for that.
Lisa, it's so funny to me. I feel like we all wanted to, it shows me I really struggle with wanting to say yes to everything too. And one thing that's helped me a little bit is I try to say no quick. So I think at first, as I was younger, I was always trying to see what I could fit in and make happen and make work. And so, but as I realized I just need to really say no quick because it respects that other person, because then they can immediately move on and find a person that can. Either do that commitment for them. So if I know it's not, in the lanes that I've committed to already, if I know that I'm not going to have the time to do it, or if I can just immediately just stop right then and see if I have another commitment at that time, then I try to not delay and let them just say no quicker.
There's a question here.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been so wonderful for me. Crystal Allen Dallas. I'm a small business owner, and so Rebecca and Mary, your words have just resonated with me. You've spoken a lot about your accomplishments and failures and balance and being strategic. I really would like to hear from you. How do you balance it all? Just having a business, 4 years in, I have 2 small children. You know, I still want to have some type of life too, as I'm conquering the world. So if a tip or something that you could provide would be very helpful. Thank you.
You know, I think a balance is, one day the mom's precedent. I mean, every day they're all equally important, but some days you have to step up, and being a mom is obviously always the most important part. But some days it's, that you can fluctuate. They're not in balance every day all the time. It's giving yourself that fortitude to know that each day is going to be a little different, and going with the flow and understanding that you're working through your goals, but that you have resources to help you. I think us as women don't ever want to ask for help. I know even my mom or sister, I don't want to ever ask them, like, hey, we're here to help. I usually just lean on my husband more, but I think that they're not equally balanced all the time, is really mine. But knowing that you can be great with all of them, balancing them out throughout the years.
I would say sometimes we think that we need to do everything, and it's something that's like, I need to do it, they need me. And the example I would give is like when I came to the EMBA program, you think like, how can you stop working like 3 days per month and all the things you need to do? You have an amazing, probably other people that I can rely on. So at home or at work. So I think when I entered the program, everybody was saying how you do both. How can you work and study at the same time? And I delegated more at work, and I realized the amazing team that I had there, and that I could do that. Sometimes you go like, oh gosh, they don't need me, and it's like a scary thinking. But it's like, this is the way that you see when you ask for help and that you need, people who understand. The problem, like I think linking to this not saying no, I remember once like I was working really hard hours, and my boss kept giving me things, and I almost crashed, and he's like, you keep saying yes. So if you said no, I will not give you more. So it's like, as simple as that. So say no, people will understand that.
Okay, all right. I think it is time for us to come to a close. I would like to give a huge thank you to our speakers, Rebecca, Andrea, Linda, Mary, Deb, and Joyce. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today, for saying yes to this. We really appreciate that you did, really appreciate it. One logistical thing, and then I will say farewell. So there are evaluation forms in the back. If all of you would be willing to fill them out, we would really appreciate it. And with that, I will say thank you all for coming. We really appreciate that you were here today. Thank you for coming. We hope you enjoy the rest of the day and celebrate this very important day as well. Thank you.